I swear, if this place has one more flickering ceiling light, I'm going to lose it, Brielle Donovan muttered, heels clicking against the cracked tile as she stepped into the lobby of the building her manager insisted they tour. She was the marketing director for a fast-growing skincare startup, and their lease was expiring soon. Her boss had handed her a list of properties to scout for their new office, but this one tucked between two high-rises in downtown Chicago barely had an online presence. Still, she'd agreed to tour it. Maybe it had potential. Maybe the second she stepped inside, she stopped. The air was different, cool, clean, scented faintly with cedarwood and something expensive she couldn't name. The lobby wasn't what she expected at all. Marble floors, minimalist white walls, tall glass panels. A massive abstract sculpture twisted in the center. It looked like something out of an architecture magazine. "This can't be the right place," she whispered. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "You're right on time." She turned and nearly walked backward into the sculpture. A man stood behind a sleek reception desk, no nameplate or computer in sight. He wasn't a receptionist, he looked too polished for that. Tall, black dress shirt rolled up at the sleeves, dark denim that probably cost more than her rent, and a watch that gleamed like it had its own spotlight. His hair was tousled in a way that looked accidental but definitely wasn't. "I'm Brielle," she said, keeping her voice even. "Here to tour the space for Radiant Labs." He extended his hand. "Nolan Ashford," she blinked. "The broker," he smiled, warm and easy. "Something like that. I own the building." Her eyebrows shot up. "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. No kidding. Most property owners didn't meet her in person. Especially not ones who looked like they belonged on the cover of Forbes." "Let me show you around," Nolan said, already walking toward the elevator. She followed, trying to ignore how broad his shoulders were or how the scent of his cologne lingered in the air. She was here for work, strictly work. They stepped into the elevator and the doors closed with a soft chime. "You own the entire building?" she asked. "Yeah, bought it a few years ago, renovated it floor by floor. Some tenants left, some stayed." He glanced at her. "I kept this space open. Figured I'd wait for the right company." The elevator opened to a sun-drenched floor with industrial beams, high ceilings, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the skyline. Brielle stepped out, stunned. "This is not what you expected?" he asked, amused. "It's incredible." He led her through the space open areas perfect for collaboration, private offices with sliding glass doors, a sleek kitchen with matte black counters and brass fixtures. Everything was modern but warm, like someone actually cared about the details. "This isn't just real estate for you, is it?" she asked. He looked at her, surprised. "No, it's not." They stood by the windows. Sunlight poured in, casting golden light on the concrete floors. Brielle tugged at the strap of her purse. "You said you kept this floor open for the right company." "Why us? You're not like the other tenants I've had. Tech bros in hoodies, law firms who only care about square footage." He paused. "I looked up Radiant Labs. I read your campaign last year, Glow from Within. You're doing something that actually connects to people." She blinked. "You read our campaign," he shrugged. "I like knowing who's in my buildings." She didn't quite know what to say to that. No landlord had ever complimented her work before. "I'll be honest," Nolan continued, hands in his pockets. "When I saw your name on the tour list, I decided to show you the place myself." "Why?" she asked, voice soft. His gaze didn't waver. "I don't know yet, but I wanted to meet you." Heat rose to her cheeks, and she looked away, pretending to study the kitchen backsplash. "Would you like to see the rooftop?" he asked. "There's a rooftop," he grinned. "Come on." They took the stairs up one more level. When he pushed open the heavy door, Brielle's breath caught. The rooftop was massive, with lounge furniture, string lights, and sweeping views of the lake and city. "It was quiet up here, like the world had slowed down just for them. Tenants can use this," she asked. "Only the ones I really like," he teased. She laughed, and for a moment it didn't feel like a business tour. It felt like something else. Something that made her heart beat differently. "You think Radiant Labs will take the space?" he asked after a moment. "I think I'd fight my boss if she didn't." He looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them, curiosity, attraction, something unspoken but unmistakable. "Well," he said, stepping closer, Then I hope she says yes. The air shifted. Brielle's smile faded into something softer, more complicated. She'd been in relationships before, but none that started on a rooftop with a man who owned the entire building. And definitely none where the man looked at her like she was the most interesting thing he'd seen all day. I should go, she said quietly. Thank you for the tour, he nodded, but didn't move to open the door. I'd like to see you again, Nolan said, voice low. Brielle's heart skipped. For business? She asked, his mouth curved. Not entirely. She held his gaze for a long beat. I'll think about it. Then she turned and walked back into the building, pulse racing, trying not to smile too wide. She didn't know what she'd just stepped into, but whatever it was. It had just begun. Brielle didn't sleep much that night. Her mind kept circling back to the rooftop view. The warmth in Nolan's voice when he said he'd wanted to meet her, the way he hadn't looked away when she said she'd think about seeing him again. By morning, she had convinced herself she was imagining most of it. It had been a long day. He was likely just being charming owners like to keep tenants happy. That had to be it. But when she walked into the office the next morning, her assistant, Ava, was already at her desk, holding a thick black envelope with gold embossed edges. This came in for you, Ava said, arching a brow. No return address, it was hand-delivered. Brielle opened it slowly. Inside was a folded cream card, the kind you'd expect a wedding invitation to be printed on. Instead, it read, dinner, tonight, 7. Driver will meet you at your lobby, no pressure, just curiosity. Underneath, a name was signed in elegant, looping script. Nolan. Brielle stared at it. There was no restaurant listed, no address, just the note. And yet, somehow, she knew he wasn't joking. Is that what I think it is? Ava asked, trying to peer over the card. I'm not sure what you think it is, Brielle replied, tucking it back into the envelope. If it's a date with someone who can afford custom stationery and a driver, then it's exactly what I think it is. I haven't said yes. You didn't say no either. By the time 7 rolled around, Brielle stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the lapel of her blazer. She'd chosen a sleek navy jumpsuit, simple, tailored, and not trying too hard. Her hair was twisted back at the nape, and she wore a single gold cuff on her wrist. When she stepped outside her apartment building, a Blacktown car waited. The driver, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a polite smile, held the door open without a word. The ride was smooth and silent. She tried to guess where they were headed, but the route didn't match any restaurant she knew. They passed Michigan Avenue, crossed the bridge, and pulled into a gated entrance near the river. When the car stopped, she stepped out and found herself in front of a converted warehouse with tall glass doors and uplighting that gave the brick exterior a soft glow. The driver didn't wait. The car disappeared almost as soon as the door shut behind her. She hesitated, then pushed through the doors. Inside, it was quiet, dim lighting, exposed beams, and a long corridor that opened into a lofted space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. Nolan stood at the far end, sleeves rolled again, barefoot, setting two-place settings on a long wood table lit by tall candles. Behind him, an open kitchen gleamed with copper pans and dark wood cabinets. You cooked, she asked, stunned. Had help prepping, he said. But I wanted it to be personal. You live here. For now, it's a temporary space while my house is being renovated. She glanced around. The space was masculine and curated vintage records stacked by an old turntable, a leather armchair by the fire, abstract art that looked like it had been collected rather than bought all at once. Come sit, Nolan said, pulling out a chair for her. She slid into it, still trying to absorb how casual he seemed in a space that looked like the set of a design film. He poured them both wine, then uncovered a dish from the center of the table. Duck confit, she asked, raising a brow. I was going to do pasta, he said. But that felt lazy. She tasted it, and her eyes widened. This is amazing. I'll pass that along to the chef I bribed for the recipe, she laughed. You do this often, invite tenants to dinner, invite people you barely know to a private dinner in your loft. He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. I don't actually. Then why me? His gaze met hers. I think you're going to change something. I don't know what yet, but I'm good at spotting impact before it happens. She didn't know how to answer that, so she reached for her wine. He watched her for a moment, then asked, "You always this composed, only on days that end in Y?" He laughed, full and real this time, and she smiled despite herself. "Tell me something you don't put on your resume," he said, lifting his glass. She hesitated. "I used to sing in a jazz trio in college. We played in a wine bar for tips and leftover risotto," he grinned. "That's oddly specific. It was a very niche crowd. Do you still sing? Only in the car. Then I'll have to make sure you drive somewhere with me soon." She shook her head, amused. "You're too smooth for your own good." He leaned forward slightly. "And you're too interesting to pretend this dinner doesn't mean anything." The air shifted. Brielle set down her wine. "You realize I work for a company that might lease your space. This could be a conflict. Only if I pressure you to say yes, but I won't." He paused. "I'll offer the space to someone else if it makes this easier for you." She froze. "You do that? I'd rather get to know you without the terms of a potential contract hanging over our heads." She studied him, searching for the catch, but found none. "Okay," she said quietly. "Take us out of the running," he nodded once. "Done." She didn't know what surprised her more, that he meant it, or that part of her was relieved. They finished dinner slowly, talking about everything from art installations to obscure podcasts. He never once talked about money or buildings or the kind of people with trust funds and private equity. When he walked her to the car, he didn't kiss her. He just opened the door and said, "I'd like to see you again." She stepped inside and looked up at him. "I think I'd like that too." And as the door shut and the car pulled away, she realized something she hadn't wanted to admit earlier. She wasn't imagining any of this, and whatever it wasn't going to be simple. The third time Brielle saw Nolan, it wasn't planned. She was leaving a strategy meeting with her team, already mentally reviewing the edits she needed to make to their Q3 pitch deck, when her phone buzzed. Ava had scheduled her a last-minute site walkthrough with a local boutique that wanted to carry Radiant Labs' new serum line. Brielle groaned. She didn't have the energy to play nice with a buyer trying to negotiate their way into a discount. Still, she hailed a rideshare, straightened her blazer, and forced herself to channel her best version of calm professionalism. She wasn't expecting Nolan to be standing behind the boutique's sleek white counter, flipping through a leather-bound catalog with a woman in a tailored cream suit. "Is this some kind of joke?" Brielle asked when the door chimed shut behind her. Nolan looked up, surprised. The woman beside him turned, smiled politely, then excused herself to take a call outside. "I didn't know you were coming," he said, closing the catalog. "You just happened to be here." "I'm an investor," he said. "They're expanding locations. I'm helping them secure a flagship lease uptown." Brielle folded her arms. "So this wasn't about me. You think I stage real estate negotiations to bump into you?" "I don't know what you do, Nolan. You've got chefs on call and handwritten invitations with no addresses." "It's a valid question." He tilted his head. "Do you want me to say yes?" She rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide the laugh that bubbled up. "I'm here to talk about product placement. Radiant Labs is considering a retail collaboration." "Then I'll stay out of your way," he said, stepping back with a hand raised. Brielle started toward the back office but paused. "What's with the catalog?" "They're redesigning their packaging." "She asked me for an opinion." "You give creative input now." She wanted something that didn't feel mass-produced. Brielle narrowed her eyes. "What did you suggest?" He walked to the counter and flipped the catalog open to a page with a minimalist bottle etched with a single diagonal slash across the glass. "This," she blinked. "That's actually beautiful," he shrugged. "You spend enough time around designers, you pick up a few things." The buyer returned and Brielle's meeting began in earnest. Nolan didn't interrupt. He stood in the corner, silent but observant. She caught him watching her once when she was explaining Radiant Labs' brand voice and how it needed to feel aspirational without being out of reach. His expression didn't give anything away, but she felt something shift in the room. After the meeting, the buyer offered a handshake and a promise to be in touch. When she left, Nolan stayed behind. "You're different when you're working," he said. "I hope that's not a bad thing." "It's not. You command a room without raising your voice." I've had to. She slipped her folder into her bag. People don't always take you seriously when you build a company around skincare. He leaned against the counter. They take you seriously now. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she asked, so what do you actually do? Besides own buildings and give branding advice, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I started out in private holdings, bought undervalued properties, flipped them, then I stopped flipping and started keeping. Built a firm. Started branching into other things, like boutique investments, like anything I find interesting. She studied him. You're not what I expected, neither are you. They stood in silence for a moment. Then he asked, are you free tonight? I have plans. With someone I should be jealous of, my bathtub and a glass of wine, he grinned. That sounds threatening. You're welcome to try again tomorrow. Will you say yes then? Depends. On what? On whether you stop showing up in places I don't expect you. He stepped closer. What if I prefer to surprise you? Then maybe I'll have to start surprising you back. His eyes flickered with something she couldn't quite name. I'd like that. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, a reminder about a call with a potential PR partner. She sighed. Duty calls, she said, backing toward the door. Brielle, she looked over her shoulder. Just so you know, he said, his voice low, I haven't stopped thinking about you since the night you left my loft. Her breath caught, but she didn't let it show. Good. Then she turned and walked out, pulse racing, refusing to look back. The next morning, a courier delivered a single item to her office. No note, no explanation, just a blank journal with a navy leather cover, its edges embossed in gold. Inside the front flap, in Nolan's unmistakable handwriting, was a single line, for whatever you're not saying out loud. She stared at it for a long time, then she picked up a pen. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of messages passed through drivers, of spontaneous lunches delivered to her office with no sender name but her favorite dishes carefully chosen. 2 weeks of late-night phone calls that started with Nolan asking how her day was and ended with him telling her about obscure cities he'd visited just to chase a painting or a piece of music. But they hadn't seen each other again. Not because she didn't want to, but because things at Radiant Labs had ignited like wildfire. A national retailer had come calling after the boutique partnership Nolan witnessed, and Brielle was suddenly caught in 100 decisions that would shape how the company scaled. It was what she had dreamed of for 3 years. She couldn't stop now, not even for someone who made her chest tighten when his voice dropped half an octave. She hadn't expected him to show up at the product launch. The event had been meticulously planned. A converted gallery space in West Loop. Floating floral installations. A press wall with clean branding. The guest list was tight. Editors, influencers, buyers, and Brielle had made peace with the idea that Nolan wouldn't be there. It wasn't his world. But when she stepped out from behind the curtain to check the lighting across the main floor, she saw him. He wasn't alone. He stood with the editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine that had eluded them for a year, talking as if they'd known each other forever. He wore a midnight gray suit, no tie, collar open. The kind of tailored elegance that didn't try to compete with the room, it simply owned it. He spotted her before she could duck back behind the curtain. You didn't RSVP, she said once he reached her. I didn't think I needed to. You didn't, he looked around. This is impressive. We had a good team. I didn't say your team impressed me. She didn't answer that. Her pulse had already jumped into her throat and she needed to stay focused. The keynote speech was in 20 minutes. I heard a rumor, he said. Do I want to know? You signed with the retailer, she nodded. Yesterday, it's not public yet. I won't say a word. Brielle glanced toward the stage. This launch, if it doesn't go right, that deal could fall through. Then let me help, she blinked. You want to help with the launch? I know half the board of that retailer. Their head of innovation is here tonight. If you want me to talk to him, no. She stepped back. I don't want that, he paused. Why not? Because I need them to want us, not because we're connected to you. Because we earned it. He studied her, then gave a short nod. Understood. She started to turn, but his voice stopped her. Brielle, she faced him. I didn't come to interfere. I came because I couldn't stand not seeing you anymore. Her breath caught. I don't care if you don't need anything from me tonight, he said. I'm still going to stand in the back and watch you do something extraordinary." She didn't reply, couldn't, so she walked away before her expression gave too much away. The speech went flawlessly. The crowd applauded before she even finished, and the buzz afterward was electric. She gave interviews, posed for photos, shook hands with people who used to ignore her emails. But her eyes kept drifting back to Nolan. He didn't push, didn't hover, just watched. When the last guest left and the staff began breaking down the lighting rigs, she found him again, standing by the windows with a glass of champagne still untouched. "I should thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not trying to fix anything tonight." He looked at her. "That's not what you need from me." "No," she said softly. "It's not." He set the glass down. "So tell me what you do need." "I don't know yet. I'll wait." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because I've spent years building things. Properties, investments, entire companies. All of it felt temporary. None of it ever made me want to stay in one place." He stepped closer. "Until I met you." Her throat tightened. "It's not just about a dinner or a rooftop or that journal you sent, you see me. And that terrifies me." "I know." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black box, not a ring, thinner, longer. She hesitated, then took it. Inside was a single silver key. "To what?" she asked. "To the empty floor above the gallery." She looked up at him. "Not for Radiant Labs, for you," he said. "A place to create, to think, to breathe, no contracts, no strings, just space that's yours." Brielle closed the box and exhaled slowly. "You can't buy me, Nolan." "I know, I'm not trying to," he said. "But I can still give you something no one else has." "And what's that?" "Room to be exactly who you are without compromise." Her heart cracked open in a way she hadn't prepared for. She stepped forward. "This can't be casual." "I've never been casual about you. I have a company to run. A life I built on my own. I don't want to take it from you." His voice was low and steady. "I want to stand beside it, beside you." She reached up, brushed her fingers lightly against his jaw. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Then let's figure it out together." She kissed him. Not because it was convenient, not because it was expected, but because every part of her was tired of pretending it didn't matter. He wrapped his arms around her waist, anchoring her like he'd always belonged there. When they pulled apart, she didn't step away. "You said you've built a lot of things," she murmured. He nodded. "Well," she said, "let's build something that lasts." And in that moment, surrounded by the soft hum of the city, the glitter of lights fading into dawn, Brielle Donovan knew she had just stepped into something real. Not a fantasy, not a fling, but a future. One neither of them had planned for and neither of them would ever walk away from. The key Nolan had given her sat in Brielle's desk drawer for 3 days. She had opened the box once, traced the smooth silver with her fingers, then closed it and buried herself in work. Not because she was avoiding him. They still talked every night, still shared pieces of their days, but she wasn't sure what stepping into that space would mean. It wasn't just a key. It was an invitation to a life that felt terrifyingly close to something permanent. On the 4th day, she unlocked the gallery's freight elevator and took it to the top floor. The space was raw but sunlit, with exposed beams, whitewashed brick walls, and windows that opened to the city skyline. A single easel stood in the center with a blank canvas. No note, no signature, just waiting. She set her bag down and exhaled. Within a week, she had filled the room. Not with furniture, not with art, with ideas. She used the walls like a storyboard, pinning up mood boards and campaign concepts, scribbled headers, color swatches. It wasn't for Radiant Labs, not directly. It was something else. Something hers. The morning she finally invited Nolan up, he didn't ask questions. He just walked the perimeter, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the walls. "You've always had this in you," he said. "I didn't know it until now." He turned to her. "You're building something new." "I think I needed to." They sat on the floor near the windows, legs stretched out, coffee cups between them. It was quiet, but not awkward. The kind of silence that came from people who didn't need to fill space just to feel connected. She looked at him, the sharp lines of his profile softened by the morning light, and something inside her steadied. "You don't get tired of the noise?" she asked. He turned his head. "What noise?" "The world you built. The pace. The people who only see you for what you can offer. I used to think I needed it. And now, I only need what feels real, she nodded, letting the words settle between them. You never told me what made you start investing, she said. My father lost everything when I was 13. We went from lake houses and country clubs to sleeping on a friend's pullout. I made a vow that night that I'd never be at someone else's mercy again. She looked at him, really looked. You've spent your life building a fortress. It kept me safe. But it also kept everyone out. You let me in. You didn't ask permission. They smiled at the same time. The following month moved fast. The national retailer launched Radiant Labs in a limited run, and it sold out in less than a week. A full distribution deal followed, and Brielle was offered a seat on their innovation advisory board. She accepted, though she kept her hands firmly on the reins of her own company. She wasn't ready to hand it off, not yet, but she did start shifting things. She hired a COO, delegated more. Made space. Nolan, for his part, stopped trying so hard to disappear into his empire. He took meetings in the mornings, but by afternoon, he was often in the creative loft with her, sketching ideas, pulling references, or just reading nearby while she worked. They talked more, about childhood, about loneliness, about what it meant to want something that wasn't strategic. One evening, as summer crept into fall, he surprised her with a dinner on the deck above the loft. No candles, no chef, just takeout and wine and a wool blanket over their legs. I've been thinking, he said as he poured the wine, dangerous. I want to build something with you. You already gave me the loft. I don't mean a space, he said. I mean a life. She set her glass down. That's not a small thing to ask, I know, he said. But I've spent too many years building things that never made me feel the way I do when I'm with you. I don't want to keep this separate from the rest of my life anymore. She turned to him. Are you asking me to move in? I'm asking you to stop pretending this is temporary. She didn't respond right away, not because she was unsure, but because something inside her had already answered before her brain caught up. I'm not good at giving control, she said. I'm not asking for control, just commitment. She leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and certain and real. In the weeks that followed, they began merging more than just their time. She turned down an offer to sell Radiant Labs for 8 figures. Not because she didn't value the money, but because she valued the freedom more. With Nolan's encouragement, she launched a second arm of the company, creative consulting for women-owned brands. The loft became their shared studio, a place where ideas lived long before they became brands. He didn't try to change her pace, she didn't try to slow his, they simply moved together. One October morning, he left a note beside her coffee mug. It was short. There's a gallery opening tonight. I bought it, but I'd rather give it to you. She found him that evening standing in the center of the newly renovated space, now filled with installations from emerging artists. A small crowd moved through the rooms, sipping champagne, but he only watched her. I can't accept this, she said. You can. It's not a gift. It's an investment in what you'll build next. She looked around. The walls, the lighting, the possibility. You don't stop, do you? Not when it comes to you. She turned back to him. Marry me, he blinked. I was going to ask you. I beat you to it. He stepped forward, took her face in his hands. You're really sure? I've never been more. He kissed her like it was the first time all over again. They married 6 months later in a garden courtyard just outside the city. No press, no pretense. Just a few dozen people who mattered. She wore a silk jumpsuit with a gold cuff. He wore the same suit he'd worn the night of her launch. Instead of exchanging rings, they exchanged keys to the loft, to the gallery, to each other. And when the music faded and the last toast was made, they slipped away into the night, not running from anything, but toward everything they'd built together. Years later, their names were etched on the plaque outside the gallery. Brielle and Nolan Ashford Foundation for Independent Creatives. And inside, on the top floor, behind the glass walls and sunlight, the original easel still stood blank, waiting. Because they both believed the best stories were still ahead of them. And this time, they'd write them together.